please, you have a seat. This would be great. Air Chief Marshal, distinguished guests from around the world, friends, I am delighted on all your behalf to welcome the Secretary of State here to the RUSI Air Power Conference on the theme of inspiration and innovation. I'm particularly grateful for the Secretary of State for making the time during a very busy week in the last days of preparation for a NATO summit in Warsaw, even more important for this country's security than ever. Perhaps I don't need reminding many of our British colleagues, but for the benefit of all of you, can I say that Secretary of State Fallon is one of our most distinguished political leaders with a parliamentary career dating back to the 1980s, many important positions during that period, and now coming up to his second anniversary as Secretary of State for Defence. A lot has happened during those 2 years. You played a key role last year in making the case to Parliament and to the British public for why the UK needed to play a full role in the coalition operations against Daesh in Iraq and Syria. And we spent yesterday in this country, in the media, talking about the Iraq War and the Chilcot inquiry as if the Iraq War was history. But of course, many of you know from the RAF and also from Allied air forces that war in Iraq is not history. It's going on today. The RAF and our allies play critical roles, brave roles, in combating Daesh and pushing them back, providing support to the Iraqi security forces in the process. So that's a very important contribution, Secretary of State, you continue to make in leading that effort. And secondly, you played a central role in last year's Strategic Defence and Security Review, in which the Ministry of Defence achieved a budget settlement which, although still very tough, was able to provide a degree of stability after 5 years of worrying decline. And as a result, I think the UK can give a good message to our fellow NATO countries in Warsaw at the end of this week, and a whole series of specific commitments in relation to new capability, new equipment as part of that SDSR was announced. And finally, I know your officials and advisors are working very hard to get to grips with what the decision of the British people to exit the European Union means for our nation's defences, for our relationships with our allies, and how we've got to work even harder to organise our collective defence efforts in support of our common interests. Finally, can I make it clear that this session, both the Secretary of State's remarks and the Q&A, will be on the record, so you're welcome to tweet and film and record to your heart's content. We look forward to what you have to say. Secretary of State.
Well, thank you very much, Malcolm, and good morning. I'd like to start, if I may, by paying tribute to the Chief of the Air Staff at his last conference in Post. He'd probably rather I didn't do this, but I do want to put on record my appreciation for his leadership of the force over the last 3 years, for his direction of the force in Operation Shader, something he's conducted without calmly, without fuss, without complaint, accepting the huge challenges involved in operations both in Iraq and now in Syria. And also to put on record my appreciation of the legacy that he leaves, which I believe is a proud one, an RAF stronger, more ready to face the challenges to come. For his leadership of the force and for his service to the state, I believe he deserves the thanks of us all. Last week, we commemorated the Somme. Besides the contribution of our troops in the trenches, that long drawn-out conflict witnessed a revolution in air power, from intelligence gathering to control of the air. Back then, the perils of aviation were almost unimaginable. Your forebears fought in canvas and wood, carried no parachutes, and had minimal training. Today, by contrast, of course, you enjoy the sort of precision and speed and reach that they could only dream of. Yet you too continue to run risks to protect our freedom. And nowhere is this more true than in our fight against Daesh. 2 years on now, nearly, from Parliament's first vote to authorise airstrikes in Iraq, and 7 months on since that authorisation was extended to Syria, we now have over 600 air and ground personnel out in Akrotiri. And it's humbling for me and other ministers to meet those men and women out on the front line and to see how effectively they're getting the job done. Our aircrew have now flown more than 2,800 missions in Iraq and Syria. They've conducted over 860 airstrikes in Iraq, and since December, 50 in Syria, more than any other nation except the United States. Since December's vote, the RAF has more than doubled its effort against Daesh. Last month alone saw the greatest number of bombs dropped and missiles fired since January. And it is RAF E-3D Sentry aircraft that are coordinating coalition aircraft over the entire operational area. It is our Voyager tankers that are extending the reach and endurance of coalition aircraft. It is our intelligence-gathering aircraft, like Airseeker, that are providing now such a significant amount of the coalition's ISR. And together, they're ensuring that our Tornadoes, our Typhoons, our Reapers can clear a path for the brave Iraqi and Kurdish troops fighting underneath. And those planes are making a decisive difference in support of those local ground forces. Daesh is now on the back foot. It is a failing organization. In Iraq, it's lost around 40% of the territory it once held. Last week saw a significant milestone, the liberation of Fallujah, the first major city to fall to Daesh 2 years ago. And once more, it was the efforts of the RAF that highlight the precision nature of our operations in the Middle East. It was our fast jets that struck more than 100 targets as Iraqi ground forces fought their way into the city. It was our jets that destroyed bunkers housing anti-tank guns, weapons factories, ammunition dumps, and artillery. It was our aircraft that provided crucial intelligence to identify potential threats, even in the demanding circumstances of street fighting in a close urban environment. It was our efforts, alongside our coalition partners, that helped liberate Fallujah so quickly, thus limiting the long-term damage to the city and saving many brave Iraqi lives. Fallujah was the first city, as I said, to be seized by Daesh back in January 2014, and it is now fallen to the legitimate democratic government of Iraq. The focus now is on stabilization so that people feel safe to return home there. Meanwhile, over in Syria, the RAF is making inroads into Daesh's command and control and is targeting their oil infrastructure, a major source of Daesh revenue. The RAF in Iraq and Syria has not operated at this sustained operational tempo in a single theatre of conflict for over a quarter of a century. And it is that tempo and commitment, our precision targeting, our ISR, and the overall support for the coalition that is making such a difference and is unlikely for the moment to abate. Now, Operation Shader might be our biggest operational focus, but it's only part, of course, of the RAF's global activity. Last year, our pilots and aircrew deployed to more than 60 countries. They're in Eastern Europe for the third year running, protecting our NATO allies against Russian aggression. Since April, they've been scrambled on some 15 occasions this year to intercept 32 Russian aircraft. Besides targeting Daesh, our people are flying in Afghanistan as part of Resolute support mission. That work, too, remains a difficult and dangerous task, and I'd like to pay tribute to the personnel involved in it, especially to the 2 RAF Puma crew who tragically lost their lives in Afghanistan last October. Besides RAF work overseas, you continue to be a constant presence in the UK, guarding our skies, guarding the Falkland skies, providing quick reaction alert to protect our security. Whether at home or abroad, you continue to pull out all the stops. The nation is proud of your service, and I am so proud of it too, so thank you. In the coming year, I expect our RAF to continue, as you might say, kicking the tires and lighting the fires. The result of the referendum will not change our global outlook, nor does it alter the shared threats that we face. To counter those international challenges, even outside the European Union, we must work even harder with our allies and partners, becoming, as we'd already set out in our Strategic Defence Review, more international by design. So while we may have opted out of one particular union, we continue to take our global responsibilities seriously as leading members of NATO, of the Organisation for Security Cooperation in Europe, of the Northern Group of European nations, of the Five Powers Defence Arrangements in the Far East, and permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. Now, those of you who serve with the RAF need no reminding of our global obligations. You have always been an instinctive international entity. But the challenge is to stay ahead of the curve. Our competitors continue to strive to close the capability gap. Russia is exploiting forward-swept wing technology. North Korea is miniaturizing nuclear weapons. Others are making the most of cyber and fifth-generation technology. Our response was the Strategic Defence Review, giving us an RAF that packs a more powerful punch, increasing the RAF's capital investment programme to more than 6 billion sterling, so that it can spend on our future air fleet. And for a sign of what's to come, we look no further than our fifth-generation F-35, which crossed the Atlantic last week in time for Riyadh and Farnborough. The F-35, both land-based and sea-based, will be the fulcrum of our new air fleet, including 2 additional Typhoon squadrons, 9 maritime patrol aircraft, 14 Voyager air-to-air refuelling aircraft by the end of the year, upgraded helicopter fleets, more than double the number of drones, and investments in innovations like the solar-powered Zephyr. We're not just investing in the platforms, but also in the weapons themselves. Today, I'm announcing a contract worth approximately £28 million to maintain our state-of-the-art Storm Shadow missile for the next 5 years. This long-range, high-performance cruise missile is already in service with our Tornadoes and is being integrated with our Typhoons. Last week, it was deployed for the very first time in western Iraq, destroying Daesh ammunition dumps in a large, protected concrete bunker. Collectively, these assets, our platforms and our missiles, make our future air fleet amongst the most adaptable and agile in the world. So if we're to seize the opportunities opened up by these new capabilities, we have to continue to adapt, as the RAF has always done. First, by responding to the growing information challenge. What distinguishes the air technology we're developing today is its increasing ability to absorb information. From the images captured by the Tornado's Raptor pods to our AWACS, fusing and disseminating data, from the continuous surveillance of Reaper to our F-35. Let's consider F-35 for the moment. The most powerful and comprehensive integrated sensor package of any fighter aircraft in history. A core processor within it that can perform more than 400 billion operations per second. A 360-degree access to real-time battlefield information, immeasurably improving our situational awareness. But to get to grips with all the data that it provides, our people will have to learn how to sift it, to understand it, to exploit it, to deliver a faster truth to our commanders and the public, and then a knockout blow to our adversaries. And that brings me to my second point about adaptation. Our people must be able to keep up with the sophistication of our weapons. That means training our crews to make judgments about the intelligence presented in front of them. It means making our organisation as a whole more streamlined and more responsive so that data distilled on the battlefield is interpreted by the analysts back home and all in real time. That's why we've brought components of the defence intelligence community together at Joint Forces Intelligence Group headquarters, alongside the imagery intelligence capability of the Defence Geospatial Intelligence Fusion Centre. But we don't just need to improve our information handling skills. As we develop our disruptive capability, whether in artificial intelligence, miniaturization, or big data, the RAF will require an even more diverse palette of skills at a time when the nation is facing a skills deficit. To bridge that gap, we're backing apprenticeships. The RAF currently has 2,700 apprentices on its books, over half of them in aircraft engineering. We're also collaborating with the primes to create engineering pathways between the public and private sectors. We've appointed a defence engineering champion, Air Marshal Julian Young, to develop talent across the single services and the civil service. And we're opening up a new Air and Defence Career College in Lincoln, so that budding engineers or computer scientists can have unrivaled access to the RAF and the air defence industries. Third, we have to help the public, as well as our own people, adjust to this new phase in air power. With more coverage on the use of unmanned aircraft like Reaper and our plans for Protector, with systems such as Zephyr and Taranis in development, there is obviously concern about the level of automation. So we need to explain clearly the benefits of the capability we're investing in and the safeguards that we've put in place. It's not so much removing humans from the process, but using unmanned systems to minimize the danger to operators and aircrew in high-threat environments. Ultimately, we want to put more power in the hands of our people by giving them better information to make more informed decisions. Now, human beings might lack the computational power of machines, but they are better than machines at understanding human motivation in all its chaotic and complex unpredictability. Our people will always be our greatest disruptive capability. So that's why we have a clear UK policy on automation of weapon systems. The operation of weapon systems will always remain under human control. We are committed to using remotely piloted systems as an absolute guarantee of oversight and authority for weapons release. And our science and technology programme does not fund research into fully autonomous weapons systems. Although humans will remain in control of our future weapons systems, new technology is, however, increasing the physical distance between man and machine. Our pilots controlling their Reapers remotely, thousands of miles away. Yet they remain subject to the moral and physiological burden of combat, as well, of course, as to the rules of engagement and the laws of armed conflict. That means we have to ensure that training and tactics and doctrine meet the needs of the 21st century pilot, as they did in the past. So let me say in conclusion, we're preparing our people and public to face a new dawn of air power. For the next generation, this will be an age of opportunity, and to make the most of it, we have to make sure that new future talent keeps coming through the door. In a sense, we need to refresh the appeal that Trenchard so famously made. He said, and I quote, "We want the mathematical genius. There is work for him. We want the scientific brain. There is more than enough work for him. We want the man of brains and the man of common sense, the man of initiative and the man of action." That was back in 1925, before women were included sufficiently. But it was also back in the infancy of air power. Today, you can look back on a century, almost a century, of extraordinary achievement and innovation. From the tactical ingenuity that was developed on the banks of the Somme to those feats of daring in the Battle of Britain, from the breakthrough of the jet engine to the development of air-breathing rocket propulsion that can enter the orbit of the Earth, from fifth-generation F-35 to solar-powered Zephyrs that can loiter in the upper atmosphere. Our people, your people, you, over that 100 years, have helped to change our country and keep it safe too. So let's, as you approach that centenary, let's tell this story. Let's take to heart the theme of this conference and do more to inspire the next generation. They will be the ones to write the next chapter in the history of our nation. But I see them flying further and longer and higher than ever before as they go on, as you have done, protecting our country and keeping our people safe. Thank you. Just stay here. Sure.
Secretary of State, thank you so much for those substantive and I think inspiring comments. It's, I think, fitting that we're following your session with one on leadership, which you demonstrated, I think, very well with those comprehensive remarks. We have a short period for Q&A, so if you'd like to indicate if you wish to ask a question by raising your hand. There's a lady right at the back here.
Larissa Brown from the Daily Mail. Military personnel have told me that they feel betrayed after reading the findings in the Chilcot report, not just by the politicians, but also by their military commanders and chiefs for failing to address the equipment shortfalls. I'm just wondering what you'd say to them, and does the scale of the effort in combating extremism in Iraq now match the scale of the challenge? Thank you.
Well, on the first, we're all now digesting the Chilcot report. I've been wading through the summary. There are many volumes to come. I will be replying more formally to the Chilcot report when I wind up the debate on Chilcot in Parliament next week. We've set 2 days aside, and I shall be speaking at the end of the debate next Thursday afternoon. You can imagine there's a lot in here to digest. But you're right, clearly, and the report is very comprehensive, very detailed. and crystal clear about the failings. There were clearly failings in the initial supply of equipment in Iraq, and those need to be explained and those need to be accounted for. I believe that Chilcot points to improvements in subsequent campaigns in the way in which we do things. We will be now, and I've set up a specific team at the Ministry of Defence to do this, we will be looking at all the changes that we've made since Operation Telic in our operations and what we've learned from both Iraq and Afghanistan to see whether there is more that we need to change in our procedures. We have now, of course, the urgent operational requirement system that gets equipment to the front line more quickly, but I want to test again whether there is more that we can do to be sure that in future conflicts our people are better served.
Very good. Gentleman here.
Secretary of State Stu Butler from BAE Systems. I don't think there's any doubt of the people in this room of the accolades you gave to the Royal Air Force and indeed many of the other air forces that are within this room that have contributed over the last 90 some odd years. I wonder if you could say something though about post-conflict and whether at a whole of government level we've done enough. I'm particularly thinking about Libya, which I was fortunate enough to be in country about 18 months or so ago. And the vast majority of the people there want the sort of peaceful existence that we enjoy here. Do you think we do enough, quick enough, after we've gone through such major conflict?
Well, clearly the lesson of the original Iraq War is that we didn't, and Chilcot is pretty decisive about that not nearly enough work was done on post-conflict planning. We are working intensely in Iraq through the Department of International Development and the other agencies and through our embassies to encourage and assist the government of Iraq to stabilize those cities and towns that have been liberated by military action, to get in there as quickly as possible to tackle the IED, and there is an awful lot of IED being left behind in these cities, and to provide the security that will enable those populations to return and to get the basic services, the water and the electricity, up running again as quickly as possible. That seems to me, and I'm still to read the whole of Chilcot, and may never be able to read the whole of Chilcot because it's a huge thing, but that seems to me the bit that simply wasn't properly prepared in the aftermath of the first war. In Syria, we convened here in London a reconstruction conference and got the pledges of money from all the key countries. And, that funding and assistance is ready now to go in once we can bring that terrible civil war to an end. And we have to start the much bigger task of rebuilding much of Syria and enabling so many millions of people to return to their homes. So yes, I think in all future conflicts, that there will be a much greater emphasis on what comes after the demonstration of power and how quickly we can win the hearts and minds on the ground by getting people to feel that they're safe and secure again to return to their homes.
Gentleman right to the back.
Thank you. I'm Ben Glaze from the Daily Mirror. You're off to the NATO summit tomorrow. I'm just wondering what you make of the current threat posed from Russia and whether or not you regret leaving the UK without a maritime patrol aircraft for what will be almost a decade by the time Poseidon's delivered.
Well, first of all, we will be, the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary and I will be at the NATO summit in Warsaw tomorrow and on Saturday, and we will be making clear Britain's contribution to the reassurance measures that NATO is now planning on the eastern flank. We will be deploying more troops on the eastern flank alongside the RAF Typhoons that are already in the skies above the Baltic. And we will be, as you know, leading the Very High Readiness Task Force that we take over next year. And we will be encouraging other allies to make the financial commitment that we've made to spend 2% of their GDP on defence. So we will continue to be playing a leading role in NATO, and particularly in helping to deter Russian aggression. So far as Russian aggression is concerned, we have seen, obviously, an attempt by Russia to change borders by force in Europe. We've seen the annexation of the Crimea, the interference in the Ukraine. We've seen heightened exercises and deployments of aircraft outside our airspace and increased submarine activity. And it was therefore essential that we restore the maritime patrol aircraft capability that was that had failed to materialise when the coalition government took office in 2020. We took that decision in the SDSR, and I hope you will have news of how we are implementing it very shortly.
Very good. Admiral West.
Secretary of State, thank you for your very upbeat message, and congratulations for getting some traction with the Treasury now to let them look at defence and think about giving it some money. I'm quite concerned that over a period, because of our precision and our capabilities, that we forget that the enemy has a vote. And when one looks at cyber, when one looks now at some of the remote precision weapons, we will be taking casualties if we fight against a number of opposition that we might have to come up against. Do you believe we have sufficient resilience to actually take damage? And do you think we should be pushing for even more money into defence to try and ensure we have that in what is a very dangerous and chaotic world?
Well, thank you. First of all, the defence budget is increasing. I think we should note that. It increased for the first time in 6 years this April, and it will go on increasing every year of this Parliament at a time when other budgets in Whitehall continue to be cut back. And I think that is to the credit of the government and the Prime Minister and Chancellor that they have not only protected the defence budget, but that it is going to grow in real terms. That growth allows us to spend more on cyber protection, the point of your question, some 2 billion, I think, over the period of this Parliament. And part of that money, alongside developing the capabilities we need and coordinating them better, bringing the cyber programs together, alongside that, is testing of our critical national infrastructure, making sure not simply that our central government and the institutions of the state, but that our power stations, our electricity grid, our ports, the key elements of our national infrastructure are better protected, and that the companies involved in delivering those kind of services and their supply chains have the kind of resilience that you refer to.
Secretary of State, I'm afraid we have run out of time for this session, but thank you very much indeed for those very clear answers to the questions, and good luck for the Warsaw Summit. We all wish you well. So if you would all like to join me in thanking the Secretary of State in the traditional way. Thank you so much, Michael.